Welcome to the brand new Star Trek Starfleet Academy series. The next live-action Star Trek adventure is finally here. We've heard whispers about this series for years now. Academy puts us back into the 32nd century era of the Star Trek universe, right in time for the opening of the new era of Starfleet Academy in San Francisco. But, even better, the Academy is actually on board the hero ship of the USS Athena. Interesting, right? This series is certainly aimed towards a different generation of Star Trek fans. The franchise has acknowledged it has struggled with this. Basically, attracting new fans is hard. But can the Academy actually pull that off? Let's look into our review of the premiere episodes. Hey everyone, my name is Captain Jack and this is Trek Central. If you're a fan of Star Trek, this is the place for you. Okay, let's talk Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Spoiler warning, we're discussing both episode 1 and 2 of Academy season 1, so you have been warned. The series' first episode, titled Kids These Days, opens well, beginning with a flashback to Caleb's childhood. Everything about the character becomes immediately clear, wasting no time getting the connection between Caleb and Captain Aki established, with the separation from Caleb from his mother. Sure, this kind of spells out regret later, but Holly Hunt's performance established itself as one of the series' greatest strengths. I would have liked to see more of Caleb's mother, if only to better sell Caleb's delinquency and immediate escape. Tatiana Maslany is a talented actress who sells her distress and desperation well, and her character's journey in the show's main arc is hopefully going to be interesting. While we're sure to see her again, I hope, I didn't quite get a hardened criminal or even something that would kind of justify Caleb's behaviour. Oh, it's also worth noting, the first episode is around 75 minutes long. It's a great amount of time to jump into this new series. Interestingly, during this flashback, it's here that we're also introduced to the show's main villain for the first season, the scene-stealing Nusbraka, played by Paul Giamatti. Within the first 10 minutes of the series, we've established the show's antagonist and explained the emotional drama between Captain Aki and Caleb. It's an efficient introduction that's emotional enough with elements that are intriguing enough to make the show worth sticking around for. If you're enjoying our Star Trek video coverage like these reviews, breakdowns and more, consider supporting Trek Central on Patreon using the link below. So fast forward to present day, which is some 15 years later, this is where the show hits the brakes for a little bit. Caleb's now a young adult, on the run and still searching for his mother. Nala has since left Starfleet, ashamed of her ordeal, and is working in a school for young children. Interestingly, she is teaching on a planet of Bajor. Now the show is all the better for actually slowing down here, as it allows us to get to know the lead characters more intimately. Particularly, we get to know more about Captain Aki, who's brought back to the service with the promise of being Chancellor at the newly opening Academy. She also drops a couple of decent landfront lines, her species, that she's far more reserved than other characters we've met. It's also nice to see Admiral Vance aka Oded Fair once again. And he's on the show's main cast list and you get some nice material here playing off Captain Hunter. Not Captain Hunter, Holly Hunter, you get what I mean. Meanwhile, Caleb's scene is the first big action spectacle of the show, losing control of a shuttle, which he's taken control of. Of course, he's captured, but the scene does show off his intelligence and capabilities. It also kind of demonstrates perhaps how he's been able to survive in the world for so long by himself. It's also something that Aki points out when she visits him in prison. His brain could be put to better use. Of course, it is the typical trope of you could be put to better use. It's very much similar to the Captain Kirk and Captain Pike scene from the Kelvin timeline. Well, when Pike recruited Kirk, you know what I mean. Okay, it's best to get this out of the way now. The Academy and the USS Athena exterior are gorgeous. The main atrium has been touted as the biggest set ever built for a Star Trek series. As soon as Caleb, who becomes the audience's sort of surrogate here, steps onto the set, everything falls into place. The nostalgia wall of names gets way too much focus, but the scope of everything else is generally gorgeous. I can't wait for the show to spend more time here in this fantastic looking set. Of course, a set is nothing without the characters who inhabit it. However, after half an episode of getting to know the lead characters intimately, the show introduces us to the rest. First Officer and Cadet Master, Laura Falk, played by Gina Yashere, has a very commanding presence. She has a tough exterior, but she delivers a lot of the show's comedy, kinda making me laugh multiple times. Of course, also on the staff list is the Doctor, played by Robert Picardo, who of course juggles seriousness and levity just as he did on Star Trek Voyager, and Prodigy, let's not forget that. On the student side, we have Jaden Krag, played by Kareem Diane. He's kind of the antithesis to every Klingon warrior stereotype. It's played completely genuinely, and it's sort of a positive masculinity I kind of like in a show. There's also Duim Remy, who's played by George Hawkins. He's a chlorine, I think, or chlorine. It kind of sounds like Iconian, Cahoin, I don't know. He's kind of introduced as the bully foil for Caleb. Now, I just wish that outside of getting their hero moments during the episode's climax, they were developed a bit more. Still, hopefully it doesn't become too annoying. That high school banter and drama might get a bit stale after a while. The showdown at the conclusion of the first episode is representative of the best of modern Star Trek. Paul Giamatti remains a scene stealer, and there's a fistfight between Braca and Caleb that's well done. It's some intense stuff that also propels a series mystery box about Caleb's mother forward. With all the cadets doing something, we also get to see what they're like under pressure. In theory, this sets the scene for a cadet team that should carry the show forward. Unfortunately, this does regress somewhat, kind of, for the series' second episode, titled Beta Test. Instead of the established team dynamic, learning about space, the Athena arrives on Earth and meets a Betazoid delegation. It brings back memories of other Betazoid visits on Star Trek The Next Generation, particularly. However, it becomes a kind of young romance story between Caleb and Harima, which is played by Zoe Steiner, the Betazoid president's daughter. And this could speak to the audience shift, but it's kind of unlike anything the franchise has done in recent memory. Then again, with episodes like The Dolphin, it's hard to say that young love and diplomacy has never been done before. With a hopeful ending, the president was dragged back to the table by the daughter's insistence. It's not a bad way to include such an element, it kind of just takes up far too much of the episode, leaving the actual diplomacy and other characters kind of shortchanged by it. The second episode, Beta Test, is kind of suffocated by Caleb's subplot, and it does come at the expense of the team dynamic the first episode took time to establish. I'm glad the show's found a protagonist, and the chemistry between Caleb and Captain Aki is amazing, but the other cadets feel like little more than set dressing for classroom antics. Of course, this could change over the next 8 weeks. We have 10 episodes in total, with 2 complete. But I did find myself upset that none of the other cadets getting anything to actually do in this episode. Kind of. For instance, our Klingon is just stood around, kind of making jokes and not really doing much. Landing on Earth also presents a dynamic shift of sorts. With the series not feeling at home on Earth or in space, it's harder to nail down what a Starfleet Academy episode is supposed to be. This also doesn't help that the other characters are so thin they could fit on a post-it note, rather than interacting with the story meaningfully. Now, at least this episode inched the mystery box plotline forward ever so slightly, unmasking the planet behind the Beta Z wall. Of course, simply having a mystery box isn't enough to call a show great, it just means the season has been carefully planned. Touching in every episode and shaking it about, especially at the expense of other characters, is kind of an interesting way to start the show. Hopefully this does change over the coming weeks. Of course, let's talk about the beauty of Starfleet Academy as a series. While we have discussed the episode's plot and stories, it's worth noting how fantastic the series does actually look. Simply put, while unique, the USS Athena looks beautiful in the episode's many B-roll shots. Throughout the first episode of Starfleet Academy, we treated some epic shots of the USS Athena. We're also seeing some great establishing shots of what a somewhat rebuilt Federation looks like. There are space stations, along with more 32nd century starship designs that we have previously seen in Star Trek Discovery. Apart from the Athena, I think the shuttles are the only new design at the minute. Even when the starship is attacked, we see these great beauty shots. However, these special effects are not just limited to the hero vessel. We actually see some beautiful locations, such as Bajor, along with other worlds where the Federation has a presence. Even the area near the Badlands, another iconic Star Trek location, is shown to be fantastic looking. Simply put, Starfleet Academy does look fantastic so far. I mean, the arrival on Earth is just another prime example of these fantastic shots. Before we get to the conclusion of my review, I want to say one thing I actually really enjoyed. It's one moment from the first episode, and this is Captain Aki going under the bridge of the Athena. Of course, the bridge looks interesting, apart from what looks like an oven grill on the ceiling. Some of you have pointed out, yes, it's funny. I wanted to say the introduction of the bridge crew kind of suggests to me that the creatives of Academy have maybe learned from the criticisms of Star Trek Discovery. One common criticism of Discovery was we didn't really know much about the bridge crew. Discovery had a kind of a main cast which didn't feature the bridge crew at times, maybe apart from the captain and the first officer and maybe one other person. Of course, as the series went on, we saw more of the bridge crew. However, in Academy, these bridge crew members who are kind of not the main cast, given out to the cadets, are introduced properly, they're named, and they have some very important scenes in the first episode. That said though, in the second episode, I don't think we see any of them. Not the end of the world, I guess they're only there to command the Athena when it's up and about, going off into the final frontier. Still, it's a fantastic part of the episode. I also loved it when they finally were like, let's go into space and journey off and go to Earth. That whole moment was amazing. I think my favourite thing in Star Trek might now be when they say, remove docking clamps, let's go. It's just a cool moment. The premiere of Starfleet Academy is an interesting affair. Not nearly as bad as certain reactionaries would have you believe, but it's also not great enough to be considered prestige television. However, bolstered by a great performance from Holly Hunter, Starfleet Academy is a worthy entry in the Star Trek canon. With Caleb as an audience surrogate, it's also a nice introduction, especially for younger viewers drawn into the teen drama aspects. Of course, the show still needs to find its voice, especially when it comes to fleshing out more of the character roster. Yet, assuming this will likely be fixed over the coming weeks, Starfleet Academy is kind of off to a promising enough start. I for one am definitely excited to see where this goes. There are familiar characters, classic action spectacles, and diplomacy on display for older Star Trek fans. It's a show with a bit of something for everyone. Let's just hope it all comes together nicely enough by the end of Season 1. Don't forget, Starfleet Academy is renewed for Season 2, which is currently filming and due to finish filming very soon. Okay, Star Trek Starfleet Academy beams down to Paramount Plus on Thursday, January 15th. That's today, with a double episode premiere, so if you've only watched episode 1, I might have spoiled some episode 2 for you, but you should go and watch it. New weekly episodes arrive on Thursdays through to March 12th. Check back to Trek Central for weekly reviews, breakdowns, and analysis of the latest episodes. Like always, if you want to know more on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the latest from the Star Trek universe. Oh, and of course you can follow Trek Central on social media platforms of your choice. Don't forget, if you want to support us on Patreon, it is very much appreciated in these difficult times, and you may also get some fantastic rewards. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next few videos where we might be breaking down the USS Athena. That could be pretty cool. Alright everyone, live long and prosper. Goodbye.